Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Sundarakaram Sadaika Priyadarshanam Ajnana Nashakam Devam Sadgurum Muralidharam Murali Mandita Karakamalam Munijanamohanam Vyatyastapadam Vanamala Dharinam Prema Bhakta Mandala Nitya Kirtitam Shri Premika Varadam Ashrayeham Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. By the benign grace of Lord Sri Hari, our very beloved Sri Madhuri Sakhi Sameta Premika Varada Thakurji, and by the immense kripa of our Sadguru Maharaj, His Holiness Maharanyam Shri Shri Muralidhara Swamiji, we are enjoying Bhagavatam from the beginning, and by our Guru Maharaj's grace, we have seen almost many important shlokas which give us a lot of life lessons. In the very first canto and in the first few chapters of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we saw how Dharma is connected to everything, and we accumulate artha, we perform our duty, and we accumulate artha by following this Dharma, and we spend the artha again in all the dharmic activities, and we also use it to fulfill our desires as long as they are in line with Dharma, again, right, those karma, and when we keep doing it, then this Dharma will eventually lead us to moksha. So that is the principle that we discussed. And he says, Atah Pumbi Dvija Sreshtha Varnashrama Vibhagashaha Swanushthitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. We discussed this also. So the end result, the end fruit of following Dharma is Bhagavan should be happy with us. In the later part of Bhagavatam, in Dashama Skanda, there's a beautiful sloka in which Shukacharya says, Kim alabhyam bhagavati prasanne srini ketane, which means what cannot be attained if Bhagavan is pleased with us. Haritoshanam. If Bhagavan is happy with us, he would grant us anything that we want. Is it not? That is the beauty of it. So the end result, the real purpose of following Dharma is Samsiddhi Haritoshanam. Bhagavan should be happy with us, right? He says this, and then in the next shloka, the set of shlokas that we're going to see, 16, 17, 18, etc., you can see that he is giving us how the steps, he is giving us the steps to show us how we finally attain bhakti. Right? Because if you remember, when we discussed all this, in the beginning he said, Pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshaje. He said, the greatest duty of someone is to have love for Bhagavan. And how should that love be? Ahetuki apratihada. That love that we have for Bhagavan should have no reason and should be unobstructed. Right? He said this. So he gave this as the ultimate thing. He said, you have to have that kind of bhakti. How will he give that bhakti? When you listen to Bhagavan's stories, Vikshvaksena Kathasuyaha. If you listen to Bhagavan Katha, you get that bhakti. If you do not if you do not listen to Bhagavan's Kathas, that means whatever dharma you did is totally futile. It's of no use, right? So which means you have to listen to Bhagavad Katha. Only then what the dharma you have done is right. And that would indeed lead us to Bhagavad Bhakti, right? Now, next he tells us the whole step of the first, we should see, we know the final goal is Bhakti, right? This is the final goal. And that's what he has told us, right? And that is the final goal. Now he is asking us, it is like, giving us a reverse thing. See? This is the final goal. And he said, how would you get that? By listening to Katha, right? Bhagavan's Katha. Now he says there is something that will lead us to this. So the other steps is what he's going to tell here in the next shloka, right? Susrushoho shraddhadhanasya vasudeva katharuchihi syan mahat sevaya vipraha punyatirtha nishevanat shrinvatam svakatham krishnaha punyashravana kirtanaha hridyantastho hyabhadrani vidhunoti suhritsatam nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. He is giving us the whole thing step by step, very beautifully. He says, when you will get this Vasudeva Katha Ruchi, when you will get the taste to listen to Bhagavan's stories, he says, it starts by getting Satsanga. Mahad Sevaya Vipra, right? Only when we get Satsanga, will we get the taste for Bhagavad Katha. Right? How will you get Satsanga? He says, Punyatirtha Nishevanat. Right? So, which means you get Satsanga only when you go and visit Kshetras. See, when you go to these Kshetras, what you get is Satsanga. How? It could be completely inadvertent also. For example, you might be going to a Kshetra like say Vrindavan or Mathura, even as just as a part of tourism. Maybe you're not even thinking of that place as a pilgrim spot. You're just going there because it's nice to go with all the friends, your cousins, etc. So you go there. But even if you go to a place like Vrindavan or Mathura or Kanchipuram or Rameshwaram or Dwarka, etc., or Puri, all these places, there might be many, many, many Mahatmas who might be living there, who are truly God realized souls, who are we call as Jivan Muktas, right? Who are free souls, who are not bound like us, who are jnanis. Such great souls will be always residing in some kshetras like that. We may not identify them, we may not see them, we may not even know if some person is a Jivan Mukta or a jnani or a Mahatma, even if we see them, because we cannot figure out from the external appearances, but they'll be there. So when you go to kshetras like that, whether you go willingly or whether you go unwillingly, however you go, you get the darshan, knowingly or unknowingly, of a Mahatma. They get to see you. So in Sanskrit, we call it as kataksham, right? Which is a gracious glance. They might look at us, and that would become the seed for our bhakti. That would be the first step. So Bhagavatam says the first step is going to the kshetras, and from the kshetras you get, when you visit many, many kshetras, you get the grace of many, many Mahatmas, and that grace will ultimately lead you to a higher satsang of a great guru. And in satsanga, you listen to katha, and by listening to Bhagavad Katha, you'll get Bhagavad Bhakti. So, see Ramayana, Bhagavan Ramachandra Prabhu himself says, Pratama Bhakti Santan Kar Sangha. First step is Satsanga, then Dusari Mama Katha Prasanga, then comes the Katha. So Ramachandra Prabhu says, you have to have Satsanga first, only then you will have Shravana. Right? How will you listen to story? Someone should tell you. And when someone tells a story, that is called Satsanga. So that is first step, then this. But Bhagavatam tells us one more step before that. He says, even to get Satsanga, you have to go to kshetras, you have to go to temples, willingly or unwillingly. However you go to that place, however you go to a pilgrim spot or a kshetra or a holy place, you get the grace of the Mahatmas, and that grace is the seed for getting Satsanga, which in turn leads to listening to Bhagavad Katha, which in turn leads to developing a taste for Bhagavad Katha, and finally that leads to Bhakti. Okay, so this is the That is the first step, or rather the whole sequence. First you go to the Kshetras, there you get the Mahat Seva or the Satsanga, then you get the Katharuchi, right? And we saw when you have the Katharuchi, you get Bhakti. Kayena vacha manasendriyaiva buddhyatmana va prakrite svabhavat karomi yat yat sakalam parasmai Srimannarayanayeti samarpayami. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,